Hey, before we get started, I just wanted to clarify that I do know that most of this is old news. I know a lot of it happened back in May, which is as long as I've been working on this video. But I put a lot of work into this, so I wasn't just going to let it die. So, here's my stupid bit about wearing summer clothes during Summer Games Fest.
Well, it is officially summer. And how do we know that? Because Jeff Keighley bopped out onto the stage of the YouTube Theater in a suit and Air Jordans to give us a reason to live until at least next June. And as June rolls to a close, so does announcement season. We've now seen a showcase from all the major publishers that you would have seen at a pre-the Big Sick E3. PlayStation, Xbox, Ubisoft, Capcom, Jeff Keighley on a stage, and of course Nintendo announcing a showcase the day before they do it, causing me to have to re-record and re-edit this already half-finished video. Thanks. Now I'm not a sports guy, so this is kind of like my Super Bowl or whatever other event people get really excited for. So I thought it'd be fun to take a look at each one of these showcases and judge them, because I have a microphone and a camera, and that qualifies me to say whatever I want on the internet. Alright, I'll quit padding the script so we can dive into each one of these showcases and see who did it the best this time around. Now, I know it's not officially part of Summer Games Fest, but if I would have called this video Who Won Announcements Made Between May and July of 2023, you probably wouldn't have clicked on this video. For this year's presentation, we were lucky enough to get graced with the PlayStation Showcase branding over a PlayStation State of Play, which usually means Sony's bringing out the big guns. The premier AAA titles. The first-party certified bangers. The games that are good. The presentation this time around was the quality we've come to expect from a Sony showcase. No more Guitar Hero crowd this year. Actually, there was no crowd at all. There wasn't even really much of a presentation. But we did get to see old Jim Ryan after a great value Watch Dogs trailer. The showcase was basically just trailer after trailer, which is how I prefer these. PlayStation hit us with 29 announcements consisting of new games, ports, and release dates, along with a few new trailers for previously announced things not counted in that 29, and let's not forget 2 Jim Ryan appearances, leaving the showcase clocking in at an hour and 12 minutes. The general consensus for this showcase was that it was a massive disappointment. I wouldn't necessarily call it that. We got some good announcements. Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Delta, the Metal Gear Collection, Marathon, Ghost Runner 2, Helldivers 2, and about 15 minutes of Spider-Man 2 gameplay. A lot of the complaints for this showcase were about the Snake Eater remake announcement not being exciting, because a Metal Gear remake has been the worst kept secret in gaming for the last 5 years. But I thought they did a good job at announcing it anyway, with the added surprise of the Metal Gear collection. But boy, was there some garbage at this showcase. Like Immortals of Avium. Obviously, we learned nothing from Forspoken. Oh boy. Phantom Blade Zero was cool. But we've seen 40 of that exact same game get announced and released since Sekiro, so I feel like we're all starting to get a little tired of that. Also, if Cat's Quest wasn't a mobile game before PlayStation picked it up, then my dad's a brick.
Dad?
Son, how I've waited for your call, ever since the day we were separated, waiting by the phone day and night. But you've called at an inopportune time, as I am late for work. And don't even get me started on Foam Stars. But if you thought Foam Stars was a dumb announcement, you haven't seen anything. But before leaving us with 15 minutes of Spider-Man 2 gameplay, which is the most anticipated PlayStation game of the year, Jim Ryan decided to reveal Project Q, an online streaming-only game console for PS4 and 5 games. It can't play anything on the console itself, so you have to first own a PS5, then buy the Project Q, and then have a good enough internet connection to stream the game from your console to the Q, so you can... What's the lowest hanging fruit joke I can use here? Play Last of Us on the toilet? Yep, that one's it. Alright, that's the lowest hanging fruit. Hi, I'm Q, and I'd like to introduce you to Project Q's #1 competitor. This is Q's project. Well, what is Q's project, you may be asking? It's an iPhone with a $90 controller peripheral attached to it.
That's right, it does everything Project Q can do, but it's also a phone.
Also, Project Q looks like a 2007 Photoshop of what the Xbox 720 was supposed to look like. They really just sawed a DualSense in half and glued it to an iPad. Anyways, PlayStation Showcase had a couple of good announcements, some who cares announcements, excellent presentation, it had some lulls in there. Overall, it was an okay showcase. But there's so many more of these to talk about, so let's get to it. Summer Games Fest came in with 30 announcements, clocking in at a massive 1 hour and 44-minute presentation, old E3 style, where Jeff Keighley himself took to the stage to reveal game announcements, gameplay trailers, and conduct interviews with developers. I know I just said that I prefer showcases that are only trailers all the way through, but Jeff has a way of pacing out a show that he's mastered over years of doing the Game Awards and now Summer Games Fest. Not every announcement at the show is going to be for everyone, but you can't plan out a showcase better than putting an announcement I care so little about, like Street Fighter 6 Cross Exoprimal, right before 10 straight minutes of Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. Should I just give the win to SGF for that? What a wild move to give that much stage time to Nicolas Cage talking about playing himself that's not himself, but is still an actor named Nicolas Cage in a video game.
And you play yourself, or who do you play?
So I play this heightened, exaggerated version of a film actor named Nick Cage.
What? Plus the announcement of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Spider-Man 2's release date. Jeff got the release date for Spider-Man 2, days after Sony just did a 15-minute presentation on Spider-Man 2. Mortal Kombat 1, Sonic Superstars, Toxic Commando, Pal World, a Pokemon with guns game. What? Lies of P getting a demo and a release date. And one I'm really excited for, Remnant 2. There were so many announcements, but that's just a list of absolute bangers that came from SGF. Or at least the stuff I care about. I'm so stoked for Prince of Persia. Of course, there were a few announcements I didn't care for, like Honkai Star Rail. There was also some weird stuff. Things like the shameless DoorDash ad or that weird Marvel Snap skit, I guess is what we call that. Look, anything that makes me think we're getting a real tabletop version of Marvel Snap, but is actually just poorly performed comedy, is gonna get some points knocked off for that. Don't play with my emotions like that. Overall, the SGF presentation was great. The announcements that weren't that exciting were always directly followed up by something great. Most reveals didn't overstay their welcome. Anything they covered that was already in the PlayStation Showcase came with information we actually wanted to know, like a Spider-Man release date. But that's enough praising Keighley at the moment. Let's move on. The Xbox Showcase / Starfield Direct. A 2-hour showcase with 22 announcements and a massive, nearly hour-long presentation on just Starfield, the world's most anticipated Xbox game. This showcase ran the same format as PlayStation of just trailers, with a quick word from Sarah Bond at the beginning and an outro from Phil Spencer. This presentation did come with the announcement beforehand that no trailers would be CG only. Now that doesn't mean every single trailer had gameplay, but they did all at least feature in-game footage, so technically, Xbox delivered on that promise. Over the past few years, Xbox has been buying up studios. Setting up the dominoes is how games journalists have described it. But every year we've continued to see that they never knock them down. It actually seems like they just left them in the dominoes box. They're just laying there next to the garlic bread twists. But I think those dominoes have finally been knocked over. This showcase kicked off with a bang showing Fable, South of Midnight, and Star Wars Outlaws, and then continued to bring the hype with Avowed, Clockwork Revolution, 33 Immortal, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and Payday 3. They also stole Persona from PlayStation with the announcements of Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactica. So Xbox playing dirty this year. I wonder why. They spaced out update announcements through the showcase in between games, and we saw updates for Sea of Thieves in the form of a Monkey Island crossover, along with Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Fallout 76, and Elder Scrolls Online getting updates as well. Plus, you can't forget the nearly hour of Starfield coverage. This showcase held my attention better than most. They didn't spend too long on the deep dives, so I guess they were shallow dives. A dip, if you will. They even announced a new hardware revision with the 1TB Series S, something that fans have been asking for since the announcement of that console. The pacing was perfect. I didn't care for every game in the showcase, but the variety kept it interesting from game to game. And most of the trailers ending with Day 1 on Game Pass is a massive win for Xbox. Say what you will about Xbox and Game Pass, but having that many games coming Day 1 to their service will convince people to go get Game Pass, which is ultimately what Xbox is shooting for. So between the announcements, the trailer after trailer presentation, more Starfield information than you could ever stuff into your brain, and a hardware announcement that people actually want. Where is the Vita 2, Sony? Huh? Where is it? In my dreams? You're right. It is there every single night because you abandon it. Xbox put on an A+ showcase. This was an excellent showing from them, but we have yet another showcase to look at. The Ubisoft Forward. Ubisoft Forward. The Ubisoft Forward. I hated it. The Ubisoft Forward was the most old E3 style production out of all of these, and it showed. It really showed. It felt like a showcase from 2013, and it didn't help that they were showing off the return of the original style of Assassin's Creed in a presentation that felt like it went on for a year. The opening Just Dance transition was cool from a video production perspective. I can't admit it was a cool way to start the showcase, but they didn't have to tell us that Just Dance was coming back. I assumed it was, as it has the last decade. It's just like Ben Franklin said. But in this world, nothing is certain, except death and taxes, and Just Dance games releasing every year. Crazy how he knew that last one when he died 219 years before the first Just Dance released. But after Just Dance, we got 10 full minutes of the Avatar game. I'm going to let you in on a little secret about me. I have no desire to see anything from Jake Sully and the rest of the Blue Man Group. I've never watched Avatar. It doesn't seem appealing to me. Every time I think about maybe watching it, I feel like I'd rather watch The Wall instead. No, not the Chris Hardwick show. The rest of the showcase continued to baffle me as they switched between the modern trailers-only format and the E3 onstage presentation style of showcase. Like the Prince of Persia Lost Crown presentation they did. A game I'm really excited for. And they spent most of the gameplay presentation, and I want to really put an emphasis on the word gameplay. As an example of why people should pay for YouTube Premium, that was a State Farm ad back there. They put the camera on the presenter with the gameplay on a screen behind them, but the framing was so awful, all we got to see was this weird angle of the corner of the gameplay behind his head. But this whole showcase was just bizarre. They talked about Skull and Bones again. Yeah, that's still being made, but they didn't really give us any information about it. They just had a band come out and play a pirate song. The only good to come from this showcase was a CG trailer with no release date for Division Mobile, and they gave us a few game updates that were glossed over in a scissor reel, with some of those updates being the best announcements of this showcase. And they gave us an actual look at Star Wars Outlaw gameplay, which is always nice to see a gameplay presentation very soon after an announcement, but they definitely didn't need a whole showcase for it. This showcase felt really unnecessary. It really didn't need to be a live presentation at all. It could have easily been a few trailers the way everyone else did it, but it still would have been a little disappointing. This was a blog post in video format. Or it could have been a few separate videos. Or maybe even a way cut down presentation. The only thing of substance from this showcase was Avatar and Star Wars. Anyways, let's move on to the next one and get this over with now that I'm hated by the whole Ubisoft fanbase. A fanbase that I'm a part of, by the way. I played through all of Watch Dogs Legion 1.5 times. Name anybody else that did that. The Capcom Showcase. This one was easily the worst. I have nothing to say about it. They announced a Mega Man mobile game and showed the same trailers for stuff we've already seen. If Ubisoft could have been a blog post, this could have been a tweet. And this was the only one that I was able to watch live. I was so hyped hoping for a new Resi trailer or a new DMC game, and all I got was the announcement of Capcom Town. What is this? It looks like a cereal box flash game. Capcom really put on a whole showcase to tell us, we made Millsbury again, but you can play Street Fighter in it. Well, you guys didn't eat a bunch of Cinnamon Toast Crunch between 2004 and 2011? Fine, we made Moshi Monster again. Or we made Webkins again. Or we made Club Penguin again. I'm done. Prayed out Mario so I can be done with this. Here we are, the showcase that pushed this video out an entire week. A Nintendo Direct. This Direct was one of the good ones. If you've never seen a Direct, they have a consistent format of trailers with the occasional stop to get a deeper look into a game. We didn't really get any Nintendo Switch Online announcements here, which I was actually hoping for. I think the N64 library could use some beefing up. I know we got Pokemon Coliseum already, but where's Diddy Kong Racing? Rare and Nintendo played nice to get us the Bad Perfect Dark game again. So where's my man Diddy? In lieu of that, they did have some killer announcements like a remake of Super Mario RPG, Detective Pikachu Returns, Princess Peach is getting a game of her own, and isn't it about time that happened already? I just recently found out they gave Wario a whole platformer before Peach. If you told me that happened a week ago, I probably would have believed it. Wario has a whole series of games, why wouldn't they give him a platformer too? Speaking of Wario, we're also getting a new WarioWare, along with Headbangers Rhythm Royale, and a new 2D Mario, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Plus, as always, we got some ports of some super old games like the Batman Arkham Trilogy and Luigi's Mansion 2. And the whole thing opened with some Pokemon Mumbo Jumbo that I'm sure is great, but I've really fallen off the Pokemon train. I like the spin-offs. That's my Pokemon thing now. It's much easier to keep up with. And that was a Nintendo Direct. The format of these has been the same for a long time now. They've been doing these since 2011, and once they got the format right, why change it? The announcements of these can be hit and miss, but they definitely hit this time. If only they announced some new hardware. Well, there's always next year. So that's it. After Nintendo's last minute edition, the Summer Game Announcement season, or I'm just going to call it Summer Game Fest, is over. And now we've reviewed all the major showcases. We've talked about all the announcements I care about. We've talked about all the ways to put on a showcase. So I guess I can quit dragging this out and tell you which one I thought was best since you sat through all that. Or you skipped all that just so you could see what I clickbaited you into. I don't really care which one of those you did. I got the view either way and you can't take it back. Well, if I ranked them from my least favorite to my favorite, obviously Capcom is the worst. I exaggerated a little bit. They had more than one announcement. I think it was like 5. But when Capcom Town is the best you got, you don't have a showcase. In 5th place, I would slot the Ubisoft showcase because it was weird. And it was boring. And it only really had 2 announcements I cared about. For 4th place, I'm going to say PlayStation. It wasn't terrible by any means like everyone said it was. But they just didn't bring it. Where is the big PlayStation first-party games that we've come to expect from these? Maybe they've gotten comfortable in their Apple of Gaming first-place spot. Maybe it was just a bad showcase. Even the best of the best stumble sometimes. Remember, Apple just announced this. In 3rd place, the bronze medal winner goes to Nintendo. Sure, they did the same format and same kind of announcements we've come to expect, like a 2D Mario game, something that's on every single Nintendo console except for the Switch, but they still managed to make it interesting anyway, as they always do. And the last 2, Summer Games Fest in 2nd place and Xbox at the top. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm primarily an Xbox player. I genuinely think they nailed it, which is not something anyone has ever said about an Xbox showcase. I'm not saying PlayStation, Nintendo, and SGF were bad. Jeff did a great job. This was the best Game Fest showcase so far. He gets better every year, just like he does with the Game Awards, and I was higher on PlayStation than the average bear. And Nintendo did what Nintendo does. But for once, Xbox got everything right. From announcements to pacing to production, Xbox nailed it all this year. Will they win next year? Probably not. They don't have a good track record. If you want to tell me these opinions are wrong, go ahead and tell me in the comments. And if you subscribe after, I'll fold my opinions and agree with you. I have no problem selling out. Speaking of selling out, go buy a t-shirt or a beanie at blaster-goblin-shop.fourthwall.com or at the link in the description. And go wait for games, I guess.